Okay, we're going to look at how you might trace an image using Illustrator automatically. So in the last tutorial we were placing an image and then using the tools in the tool palette to pick out bits that we wanted to recreate in vector. So creating objects and filling them in with colour. Now there are ways to do it automatically in Illustrator, which is a great time saver. However, there are one or two little complications to be aware of. Okay, so in Illustrator here I've got my placed image, the same as before, and I've just made a copy of it in the layers palette here. So I'm going to keep an original. That's always a good thing to do, and turn it off. And with this as a template, I can go ahead and trace using the image trace options. Now, before I do that, I just want to let you know about something you might need to think about. If you're importing a high quality image into Illustrator, it's going to be about 300 dots per inch, let's say. It's going to take Illustrator quite a while to transfer all of that information into vector objects. So because the image is much more refined, Illustrator's got more to do. So what we want to do if we use reference imagery to trace, we just need to make them 72 dpi, and that speeds up the process a little bit. So if we click on the image on the artboard and then go to the object menu, you'll notice there's an option there to rasterize. If we click on that, you'll see it will give us an option. It will say resolution for this image is 300 dpi, and we want to just make that 72 and then click OK. Okay, so visibly nothing will change because we're still looking at it on screen, but it'll actually change the image. It will downsample it to 72. Okay, so with the selector tool selected and the image selected on the stage, you'll notice that the top bar here has some options for you. About halfway along you'll see image trace. Just next to that there's a down arrow, so click on that and you'll see you've got your tracing options. We could, if we wanted to, try and recreate this image in vector, so high quality photo style. That would take a fair while. We could opt for fewer colours, so if I just click on 6 colours, I'll show you the process. Okay, so this is Illustrator analysing the image, picking out where distinct colour and tone changes are, and then mapping them with drawn vector objects, so paths and anchor points. You can see just for 6 colours takes a little while, so this is our tracing. So 6 colours takes a little while, so you can imagine what a high quality trace would be, so hundreds of colours. So I'm just going to Command Z to undo that, and I'm going to go for a much more simple look, so I'm going to choose the black and white logo option and trace using that. So now we have something that's just a 2-colour block print, which is kind of the effect that I'm after. And we can, once it's all traced, we can go ahead and change the colour, which I'll show you in a minute, so we're not going to go just for black and white. So here I've got some detail of the grass and the trees, and some of the van. It's fairly detailed, but a lot of the detail is kind of missing. You can tweak this trace further and make it even more simple or more refined just by clicking on the button here next to the View Tracing Result option. It's just a little square button that says Image Trace Panel, and that'll give you this dialog box that allows you just to tweak what's appearing here. So you can just straightforwardly tweak the threshold, so just move that up, and this will decrease or increase the sensitivity of the trace. So it's quite easy to understand. Just move it all the way down, and that decreases it. Okay, so depending on how much detail, so I'm kind of looking at this VW badge here, and I kind of want that to be quite pronounced, so I'm just going to increase it slightly. So this is about 150. That's given me a nice kind of contrast, and also it's picked out some of the detail in the lights and the wheels, which is what I want. And we can further tweak how the paths and sensitivity appear if we click on the advanced settings down here. You'll notice I can tweak the amount of paths, percentage, so I've made that up to 80. And it's very, you can't really see that very much, but you can see that the paths sort of tighten up around the edges. If I decrease it quite a bit, they should loosen up around here. You can have more flowing paths, so fewer corners. I'm just going to say, yeah, 10% for the corners. And you'll see that these sort of round off a little bit, very slight changes. The one that will give you the most change is noise, so if we move that all the way down, you'll notice that I pick up a lot more detail in the image, so lots of dots in the grass appear. So in this case I want there to be less detail, so I'm just going to increase the noise slider. Maybe 65. Okay, so this is a more simple trace. Let's just say I'm happy with that. We can go ahead and edit that. Just before we move on, just a little tip, particularly if you're in this mode, is you probably want to just here, you'll see at the bottom it says ignore white. So depending on what page color we're going to be on, this will all be see-through. But it makes your life a bit easier if you just want the solids to ignore the white, and you'll see why in a minute. And just to trace the kind of block color. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Click on that. So we have a kind of simple trace, and now we want to get in and be able to change some of the colors and edit some of these objects that are traced. So I'll just click on the expand option, and you'll notice now I have the objects available to edit. So I can just go in with the direct selection tool here, and I can click on objects. So here you can see anchor points and paths as we're used to, and if I don't want certain detail I can just delete it. Okay, and so I can go ahead and take some of that background out. So these trees in particular. And because we're on a white page, this looks like white, but it's actually see-through. And then we can go ahead and colour parts of the van as we need to. So if I select this area here, you can see the van is selected. And I'll just go to my colour guide. And away we go. Okay, so there's not much of a distinction between the sort of ground and the shadow, so you may need to do a bit of cutting here and there or tweaking. And there are a couple of ways that you can do that. So let's just say I need that shadow here to be gone. I can click on my scissor tool, which is just under the eraser, and I can go ahead and click on a path and just cut some anchor points, and then go to my direct selection, click on the bit I don't want and delete. Or alternatively, if you fancy it, you can do a bit more of a freehand cut. And so under the scissor tool there, you'll see there's a knife tool, which is quite fun. You can just trace across the area that you want to be gone, and then use the direct selection and cut, and that helps you just to simplify the image. So as you go, you can just work around kind of deleting the bits that you don't want. Another helpful tool here, so let's just say we want to select all of these black bits of grass and get rid of them. We can do that quite quickly and easily. Just below the direct selection tool you'll see the lasso tool. We click that and we can just circle the bits and delete.